stars together, we need to have something to anchor the planets. A sun anchors the planets around itself, a black hole anchors the suns in a galaxy, there's probably another something that anchors several galaxies in a cluster, and so on. There's something bigger in a supercluster. Anyway, the Urantia book is the revelation of the Trinity that is sitting in judgment and in architectural planning somewhere in the center of this local group. Still, this leaves billions of galaxies in our universe alone. The Pleiadian revelation talks about, basically the Pleiades are just down the block, 500 light years, which is just next door neighbors in our galaxy of 150,000 light years. 500 light years is just next door neighbor. So the Pleiades are just down the block from us, but basically their revelation concerns our whole universe, or most of it. Still, we are short of one with 740,000 zeros of other universes that exist. How then can we claim that any one of these revelations is all the truth, nothing but the truth, and how was it, and everything of the truth? These are just partial glimpses, like the partial cross-sections that we did earlier on of these complex phenomena that we investigated. The elephant in the blinds examining it, the gasoline internal combustion engine, or the nuclear power plant, or the universe. These are just partial cutouts, partial cross-sections, partial limited viewpoints or philosophies. The universe is way more complex, way more tremendous. A tiny little paragraph buried deep in the Urantia book shocked me probably most of all. They say that the language of the capital of our super universe, the capital of our galaxy, the Trinitarian capital of our galaxy, Uversa, has a vocabulary of 1.5 billion root words. If we make the ratio of that vocabulary to our limited English language Oxford dictionary vocabulary of 250,000 words, that ratio is as unfavorable to us as the ratio between the Oxford Dictionary and the 100 or so sign words of Coco the gorilla that we saw in that film Gorillas in the Mist, where, what was the name of the lady? Jean Goodall? Taught them the sign language. Obviously the gorillas have the capacity to understand several hundred words and to actively use them. I totally believe everything she does, but if we try to explain to Coco the gorilla using only 100 words and not a single word more, the complex topics we are talking about, explain anti-gravity, explain secret societies, explain terrestrial education systems and so on, it's just impossible. In the same way it is impossible for the beings that sit in the capitals of the galaxy or further up in the universe to explain to us with our limited language. As much as our language is ahead of the language of Coco the gorilla, as much the language of the beings here is ahead of ours. How would they explain complex ideas that we don't even have the word of? We have 250,000 words, they have 1.5 billion words. We are talking about a totally different ballgame here. It's a much different league. And this is just the center of our galaxy. Probably on Paradise they have a language that has hundreds of billions, maybe trillions of words. And this is still a group of, the local group of a dozen galaxies. How about bigger management structures that take care of the whole universe and so on? According to Billy Meyer, there are many progression levels in the universe. How many schooling levels are there? He says 1 to the 49th power, 10 to the 49th power, which means 1 with 49 zeros. These are the schooling levels, the schooling years that we have to progress in the universe, slowly, level by level, going up, until we reach the highest levels of existence. With this slide, I would like to make a point that possibly all of these revelations are true, despite their great diversity, despite their visual, almost total diversity. Still, I think that there exist a much more complex reality that can accommodate all of them without having to throw out a single word or even a comma. I tend to take everything for granted, and instead of discarding something because it contradicts with other things, I tend to invent a more complex reality that would accommodate for everything. And in the long run, I've turned, I mean, the practice has taught me that in the case of anti-gravity, or in the case of secret German anti-gravity research, or in the case of even bigger global level Illuminati research, that reality greatly outpaces our ability to comprehend it. That reality is way more crazier and way more schizophrenic and way more tabloid than the craziest of the tabloid sources. The tabloids are just a gross understatement of the actual variety and diversity in the universe. Enough about conspiratology, back to underground construction. In 1955 Look magazine, we have the idea of an underground saucer base, invulnerable to nuclear strikes and to punitive, how should they call them, vengeance, lightning bolts from the Trinitarian judgment courts, if such a judgment comes on the planet. One of the major reasons for the Luciferian empire digging deep underground is the same as when they did in Lemurian and Atlantean and other previous times. All of these antediluvian civilizations left remnants, small pocket civilizations underground that survive to these days. The underground pocket civilizations under the Gobi Desert, the blue-skinned people under India that Billy Meyer talked to, and that probably caused a lot of the Indian religious traditions, all these blue-skinned gods that they have in their mythology. The underground civilization under Mount Shasta, underground colonies under some of the South American mountains and so on. Many of these remain from antediluvian civilizations that perished in nuclear holocaust. So the alternative truth scenario is working. The Luciferian empire is busily digging deep underground, preparing for whatever may come. A nuclear holocaust, a judgment day, or anything else. The slide is inverted, but this is a publication of the Underground Developers Association of the city of Kansas. There's a revolution in business and industry, in brackets, right under your feet, meaning that you know nothing about. Let's see, what do they have in this glossy brochure. Contemporary space, prehistoric integrity, the Geospace Executive Park. This is underground office space complex that you can rent office for your company. Or a publication of the Underground Developers Association in the city of Kansas here. We see a semi-truck entering the entrance of the complex. We see a beautifully decorated, either a shopping mall or an exhibition area, and another entrance of the complex with some cars driving in. It was very difficult for me to get the better of these slides, but we have a railroad train station underground, industrial area, 3 semis parked in parallel, showing the magnitude of the galleries, office spaces, hotel spaces, retailing areas, all underground. Nothing is secret. Somebody called the radio station the number that they gave, talked to a professor of underground construction, and they gave them the Developers Association. They called them and they got the brochure. They said, we're interested in leasing space in your complexes. These are limestone mines that were excavated in such a way, with such a foresight, to make office available for future use. A publication again of the Underground Developers Association. In the city of Kansas alone, we find 10 member sites, which means that there are many non-member sites which are privately owned and we know nothing about. And if you read carefully the name of these member sites, there is a site that has university in its name. two sides that have